The dust had barely settled on the stagecoach when Tabitha Kendrick stepped down onto the weathered boards of Tropic, Utah, her worn leather trunk hitting the ground with a thud that seemed to announce her failure to the entire town. It was the spring of 1882, and she had come here with nothing but broken dreams and the bitter taste of rejection still fresh in her mouth. The small frontier settlement nestled in the shadow of red rock cliffs looked nothing like the bustling streets of Salt Lake City, where she had spent the last 3 years working as a seamstress in her aunt's shop. That life had ended 2 weeks ago when Robert Harrison, the banker's son she had foolishly given her heart to, had announced his engagement to Margaret Whitmore, a delicate blonde beauty with porcelain skin and a substantial dowry. Tabitha had stood in the shop, needle still in hand, when she overheard 2 society ladies discussing the match. "Well, of course he chose Margaret," one had said with a cruel laugh. "That Kendrick girl is pleasant enough, I suppose, but she is hardly beautiful. All those freckles and that red hair, and her figure is far too sturdy for fashion." The words had cut deeper than any needle ever could. Tabitha had looked at herself in the mirror that night, really looked, and saw what she believed everyone else saw: plain brown eyes that were too wide set, a nose with a slight upturn that made her look perpetually curious, freckles scattered across her cheeks and the bridge of her nose like spilled cinnamon, hair that was more copper than the fashionable golden blonde, thick and unruly, refusing to stay in the neat styles other women managed. And her body, strong from years of farm work before her mother died, was not the willowy, delicate form that graced the fashion plates. She had written to her Uncle Samuel that very night, accepting his long-standing offer to come work in his general store in Tropic. If she could not be beautiful, if she could not have love, at least she could be useful. Now, standing in the afternoon sun with red dust coating the hem of her sensible brown traveling dress, Tabitha felt the full weight of her decision. The town was smaller than she had imagined, just a main street with perhaps 24 buildings scattered along it. The general store stood at the far end, a sturdy 2-story structure with a painted sign that read Kendrick Mercantile in bold letters. "Miss Kendrick." A young boy, no more than 12, approached with a gap-toothed smile. "Your uncle sent me to fetch you. I am Jimmy Patterson. I help out at the store sometimes." "Thank you, Jimmy." Tabitha managed a smile despite the exhaustion pulling at her bones. The journey had taken 2 days, and every mile had felt like she was traveling further from the life she had wanted and deeper into exile. Jimmy hefted her trunk with surprising strength and led her down the dusty street. A few townspeople stopped to stare, and Tabitha felt their eyes on her like physical touches. She kept her chin up, refusing to show the uncertainty churning in her stomach. Uncle Samuel was waiting on the store's front porch, his weathered face breaking into a genuine smile when he saw her. He was her mother's older brother, a confirmed bachelor who had moved west 30 years ago to make his fortune. While he had not found gold or silver, he had built a successful business serving the ranchers and farmers of the area. "Tabitha, girl." He pulled her into a bear hug that smelled of tobacco and peppermint. "You are a sight for sore eyes. Come in, come in. I have got your room all ready upstairs." The interior of the store was dim after the bright sunlight, but Tabitha's eyes adjusted quickly. Shelves lined the walls, packed with everything from canned goods to fabric bolts, farm tools to patent medicines. The scent of coffee, leather, and soap mingled in the air. It was orderly and well kept, speaking to her uncle's meticulous nature. "I cannot tell you how grateful I am for your help," Samuel said as he led her up the narrow stairs at the back of the store. "Business has been good, almost too good for one man to handle. Having family here, someone I can trust, that will make all the difference." He showed her to a small but clean room with a narrow bed, a washstand, and a window that looked out over the main street toward the massive red and white cliffs that rose in the distance. The landscape was alien to her, so different from the green valleys she had known as a child or the city streets she had grown accustomed to. "Get yourself settled," Samuel said kindly. "Supper is at 6. We eat at the boarding house down the street. Mrs. Patterson, Jimmy's mother, runs it. Makes the best biscuits in the territory." After he left, Tabitha sat on the bed and allowed herself a moment of weakness. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she blinked them back. She had made her choice. This would be her life now, and she would make the best of it. Beauty might be beyond her reach, but dignity was not. The next morning, Tabitha woke before dawn to the sound of wagons and horses moving along the street. She dressed quickly in a simple gray work dress and tied her unruly hair back in a severe bun, then made her way downstairs. Samuel was already behind the counter, measuring out flour for an elderly rancher. "Morning, Frank," Samuel called cheerfully. "This here is my niece, Tabitha. She will be helping me run the place now." The old rancher touched his hat brim. "Madam, welcome to Tropic. You picked a good time to arrive. Spring is here and everyone is restocking for the season." It was true. Over the next few hours, a steady stream of customers came through, and Tabitha found herself immediately absorbed in the work. She measured and weighed, recorded purchases in the ledger, and learned the names and faces of the locals. Most were friendly, curious about the new arrival. A few were standoffish, as people in small towns often were with outsiders. Around mid-morning, when there was a brief lull in customers, the door opened and a man walked in who made Tabitha's breath catch in her throat. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with broad shoulders that spoke of hard physical labor. His face was tanned and angular, with a strong jaw shadowed by a few days' growth of beard. But it was his eyes that struck her most, a startling blue-green like the shallow waters of a mountain stream. He removed his dusty hat, revealing dark brown hair that curled slightly at the ends, and those eyes swept the store before landing on her. "Morning, Samuel," he said, his voice a deep rumble that seemed to resonate in Tabitha's chest. "I need to place an order for fence posts and wire." The winter was hard on the north pasture. "Wade, good to see you." Samuel came forward with a smile. "Let me introduce you to my niece. Tabitha, this is Wade Lawson. He runs the Running L Ranch about 5 miles north of town, one of our best customers." "Wade, my niece Tabitha Kendrick, just arrived from Salt Lake City." Wade turned those remarkable eyes fully on Tabitha, and she felt her cheeks flush. He stepped forward and extended his hand. "Madam, pleased to make your acquaintance." His hand, when she took it, was calloused and strong, but his grip was careful, as if he was aware of his own strength. "Mr. Lawson," she managed, hoping her voice did not sound as breathless as she felt. "Just Wade, please." A smile touched his lips, transforming his serious face into something warmer. "We do not stand much on formality out here." As Samuel discussed the order with Wade, Tabitha busied herself straightening a display of canned peaches, stealing glances at the rancher. He was probably in his late 20s, she guessed, and wore his work clothes with an easy confidence. His boots were dusty but well-maintained, his shirt clean despite the evidence of hard work. There was something solid about him, dependable. "Tabitha," her uncle's voice broke through her thoughts. "Can you write this down in the order book? Wade needs 50 posts and 3 rolls of barbed wire to be delivered next Tuesday." She hurried to the counter, carefully recording the information in her neatest handwriting. As she wrote, she was acutely aware of Wade standing just a few feet away, discussing weather and cattle prices with her uncle. "I heard you had another run-in with the Doherty boys," Samuel was saying with a frown. "They giving you trouble again?" Wade's expression darkened slightly. "They cut my fence last month, let about 20 head wander onto their property. Then they had the nerve to claim the cattle were theirs. Sheriff sorted it out, but I am keeping a closer eye now. Trouble with neighbors." Tabitha asked without thinking, then immediately regretted speaking when both men turned to her, but Wade did not seem to mind. "The Doherty brothers run a spread west of mine. They have had their eye on my water rights since their father died. Figure if they make enough trouble, I will sell cheap." He shook his head. "But the running L has been in my family since 1870. My father built it from nothing. I am not going anywhere." There was steel in his voice, and Tabitha found herself admiring his determination. She knew something about refusing to give up. "Well, you let me know if you need anything else," Samuel said, "and you be careful out there." Wade nodded, then turned back to Tabitha. "It was nice meeting you, Miss Kendrick. I hope you will like Tropic. It is a good town, good people." "Thank you," she said quietly. "I am sure I will adjust." Something in her tone must have conveyed her uncertainty because his expression softened. "It can be hard moving to a new place, but give it time. This land has a way of getting under your skin." After he left, Samuel chuckled. "Wade Lawson is one of the finest men in this territory. Works harder than any 3 men combined, honest as the day is long. He has had his share of hardship, but it has not made him bitter." "What kind of hardship?" Tabitha asked, trying to sound casual. "Lost his parents to fever 5 years back within a week of each other. He was just 22, suddenly responsible for the whole ranch and his younger sister. Grace was only 13 then. He could have sold the place, moved somewhere easier, but he stuck it out. Raised Grace himself while building up the herd. She is 18 now, helps run the ranch house." Tabitha felt a pang of sympathy. She knew what it was like to lose parents, to have your life upended by circumstances beyond your control. Her mother had died when she was 16, her father 2 years later. If not for Uncle Samuel and Aunt Helen, she would have had nowhere to go. The rest of the day passed in a blur of customers and work. By the time Samuel closed the store at 6, Tabitha's feet ached and her head swam with new information. But there was satisfaction in the exhaustion. She had been useful, productive. It was something. At supper in the boarding house, she met more of the townspeople. Mrs. Patterson, Jimmy's mother, was a plump woman with kind eyes and a ready smile. Her husband had died in a mining accident years ago, and she supported herself and Jimmy by taking in boarders and serving meals. The food was simple but hearty, and Tabitha found herself genuinely hungry for the first time in weeks. The other boarders included a traveling salesman, an elderly prospector who spent most of his time in the nearby hills searching for silver, and the school teacher, a prim woman named Miss Hartwell, who eyed Tabitha with open curiosity. "So you have come from the city," Miss Hartwell said over her roast beef. "Tropic must seem quite rustic to you." "Different," Tabitha acknowledged, "but not unpleasant. Everyone has been very welcoming." "We are a close community here," the schoolteacher continued, "which can be both a blessing and a challenge. Everyone knows everyone else's business." It sounded like a warning, and Tabitha filed it away for future consideration. That night, lying in her narrow bed with the window open to the cool spring air, Tabitha listened to the unfamiliar sounds of the frontier town. Somewhere a dog barked, and the wind whispered through the cottonwood trees along the creek. The stars visible through her window were brighter than she had ever seen, scattered across the sky like diamonds on black velvet. She thought about Wade Lawson, about the way his eyes had seemed to really see her, not look through her or past her. It meant nothing, of course. He was simply being polite. But still, the memory warmed her in a way she had not expected, The weeks that followed settled into a comfortable rhythm. Tabitha learned the ins and outs of running the mercantile, getting to know the regular customers and their needs. She discovered she had a knack for ordering inventory, for predicting what would sell and what would sit on the shelves. Samuel was delighted, declaring that she had better business sense than he did. Wade came to town every week or two, usually with his sister Grace, a pretty girl with dark hair and her brother's striking blue-green eyes. Grace was friendly and open, immediately taking to Tabitha despite the 7-year age difference. "It is so nice to have another woman around," Grace said one day while shopping for fabric. "Most of the girls my age are either married or not interested in anything beyond gossip. You seem different." "Different is one word for it," Tabitha said with a wry smile, thinking of those society ladies in Salt Lake City. "I mean it as a compliment," Grace insisted. "You are serious and smart. Wade says you know more about running the store than your uncle does." "Wade said that." Tabitha tried to keep her voice neutral, but her heart gave a little skip. "He notices things." Grace gave her a knowing look. "He has been different since you arrived. More cheerful, I think." Tabitha wanted to pursue that thread, but other customers entered the store and the moment passed. It was true that Wade seemed to find more reasons to come to town than he had before. Sometimes it was to pick up supplies, sometimes to check on an order, sometimes just to exchange news with Samuel. And increasingly, his conversations included Tabitha. "What did you think of the spring weather so far?" he asked one day in late April, leaning against the counter in a way that suggested he was in no hurry to leave. "It is warmer than I expected," Tabitha admitted. "And drier. I keep forgetting to drink enough water." "You have to be careful about that," Wade said seriously. "The dry air here can sneak up on you. Always keep a canteen handy if you are going to be outside for long." "I will remember that." She smiled at his concern. "Though I do not imagine I will be spending much time outdoors. The store keeps me busy." "That is a shame." His eyes held hers. "Some of the prettiest country in the world is right outside your door. The red rocks, the canyons, the way the light hits the cliffs at sunset. You should see it properly." "Maybe someday," she said, though she could not imagine when she would have the time or the opportunity. "I could show you," Wade said, and there was something tentative in his voice, unusual for a man usually so confident. "If you wanted. Maybe on a Sunday when the store is closed. We could take a ride up to the overlook. The view is something special." Tabitha's breath caught. Was he asking to court her? Surely not. Men like Wade Lawson did not court women like her. He was probably just being friendly, neighborly. But the way he was looking at her, waiting for her answer with an expression that was almost anxious, made her wonder. "I would like that," she heard herself say. "Very much." The smile that spread across Wade's face was like sunrise, bright and transforming. "Sunday, then." "I will come by at 2 if that suits you." 2 would be perfect. After he left, Samuel gave her a sidelong look. "Wade Lawson does not make offers like that lightly. He is a good man, Tabitha. Do not let your past make you doubt that." "I barely know him," Tabitha protested, but her heart was beating fast. "Then get to know him. But keep an open mind, that is all I am saying." Sunday arrived with perfect weather, warm but not hot, with a gentle breeze that carried the scent of sage and juniper. Tabitha changed her dress 3 times before settling on a simple blue cotton that brought out the brown in her eyes. She braided her unruly hair and pinned it up, then stared at her reflection in the small mirror. The same face looked back at her. Too many freckles, nose too upturned, eyes too wide. Not beautiful, not like Margaret Whitmore or any of the delicate society girls. But maybe, she thought with a flicker of hope, maybe Wade saw something different when he looked at her. He arrived precisely at 2, riding a handsome bay horse and leading a gentle-looking mare. He had cleaned up, wearing a dark blue shirt that made his eyes even more striking, and his boots were polished. "Miss Kendrick," he said, dismounting with easy grace. "You look lovely." The compliment caught her off guard. "Thank you," she managed, "though you do not need to flatter me." Something flickered across his face, an expression she could not quite read. "I was not flattering. I was stating a fact." He helped her mount the mare, his hands steady on her waist, and then they were riding down the main street and out into the open country beyond the town. Tabitha had ridden as a child on her family's farm, and the skill came back to her quickly. The mare was well trained and responsive, and soon they were moving at an easy canter across the scrubland. The landscape was unlike anything Tabitha had ever experienced. Massive red and white cliffs rose in the distance, their faces carved by wind and water into fantastic shapes. The earth beneath the horses' hooves was red and sandy, dotted with hardy bushes and wildflowers just beginning to bloom. The sky stretched overhead in a dome of impossible blue. Wade led her up a winding trail that climbed steadily into the foothills. They rode in comfortable silence, the only sounds the creak of leather, the breathing of the horses, and the occasional call of a bird. Tabitha found herself relaxing in a way she had not in months, the tension that had lived in her shoulders since Robert's betrayal slowly unwinding. After about an hour, they reached a plateau that overlooked the valley. Wade dismounted and helped her down, and then they stood side by side, looking out over the view. It took her breath away. The town of Tropic was a cluster of buildings far below, looking like toys from this height. Beyond it, the valley stretched out in bands of red and gold and green, and in the distance, more cliffs and mesas rose in layers that faded to purple in the haze. The scale of it was overwhelming, humbling. "This is my favorite spot," Wade said quietly. "When things get hard, when I am worried about the ranch or the weather or whatever trouble is brewing, I come up here. It puts things in perspective, reminds me that my problems are pretty small in the grand scheme of things." "It is beautiful," Tabitha whispered. "I have never seen anything like it. I grew up with this view, so sometimes I forget how special it is." He glanced at her. "But seeing it through your eyes, it is like I am seeing it fresh again." They sat on a flat rock, and Wade produced a canteen and some biscuits wrapped in a cloth. They ate in silence for a while, and then Wade said, "Grace told me you came here from Salt Lake City. What made you decide to leave?" Tabitha considered how much to say. She did not want to burden this man with her problems, but there was something about his quiet presence that invited confidence. "My aunt and uncle raised me there after my parents died. I worked in their seamstress shop. It was a good life, but I was ready for something different." It was not exactly a lie, but it was not the whole truth either. Wade seemed to sense there was more to the story, but he did not push. "What about you?" Tabitha asked. "Samuel told me you have run the ranch since your parents died. That must have been difficult." Wade's expression grew somber. "It was the hardest thing I ever went through, watching them get sicker, not being able to help. And then suddenly they were gone, and I had a 13-year-old sister to raise and a ranch to run. I had been working with my father since I was a boy, so I knew the business, but I had never been in charge of everything. The first year was rough. I made a lot of mistakes, almost lost the whole thing." "But you did not," Tabitha said softly. "No, I was too stubborn to fail, and I had Grace depending on me. I could not let her down." He smiled slightly. "She is a good kid, smart, tough. She will make some lucky man a fine wife someday, though I am in no hurry to lose her. She seems very devoted to you. We have been through a lot together. It bonds you, shared hardship." He turned to look at Tabitha directly. "What about you? You must have left someone behind in Salt Lake City." "A beau, maybe," Tabitha felt her cheeks heat. No, there was someone, but it did not work out. He chose someone else. Then he was a fool. The words were said with such conviction that Tabitha blinked. You do not know that. You do not know me. I know enough. Wade's eyes were serious. I know you are smart and hardworking. I know you treat people with respect, even when they are difficult. I know you listen more than you talk, which is rare. And I know that when you smile, really smile, it lights up your whole face. Tabitha felt tears prick at her eyes, and she looked away out over the valley. You are kind to say so, but I know what I am. I am not beautiful, not like the women men usually want. I have made my peace with that. Tabitha. Wade's voice was gentle but firm. Look at me. Reluctantly, she turned to face him. He was closer than she had realized, near enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his blue-green eyes. Who told you that you were not beautiful? No one had to tell me. I have eyes. I know what I look like. And what do you see? Plain features. Too many freckles. Hair that will not behave. A figure that is too sturdy, not delicate enough. The words spilled out, all the insecurities she had been carrying. Wade reached out and gently tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear, his touch sending shivers down her spine. You want to know what I see? She nodded, not trusting her voice. I see a woman with eyes the color of good earth, warm and honest. I see freckles that look like they were painted on by the sun itself. I see hair that is the color of a new copper penny, bright and alive. I see a woman who is strong, who does not break easy. And yes, I see beauty. Real beauty, not the kind that is painted on or tied up in fancy dresses, the kind that comes from within and shines through. Tabitha's breath hitched. Wade. I have been looking for a reason to spend time with you since the day we met, he continued. Not because I am being neighborly or because you are Samuel's niece. Because when I look at you, I see someone I want to know better. Someone I could maybe build something with if she was willing. I do not understand, Tabitha whispered. You could have anyone. Why would you want me? Because you are exactly what I want. He took her hand, his calloused fingers intertwining with hers. I am not a fancy man, Tabitha. I do not have pretty words or smooth manners. I am a rancher who works dawn to dusk, whose hands are always dirty and who smells like cattle and horses most of the time. I need a partner, not a decoration. Someone who is strong enough to build a life out here, someone real. That is what I see when I look at you. A tear spilled down Tabitha's cheek, and Wade reached up to wipe it away with his thumb. I am sorry, she said. I am not usually so emotional. You have nothing to apologize for. His voice was rough with feeling. I know we have not known each other long. But out here, we do not waste time on games or pretense. Life is too short, too hard. When you find something good, you hold on to it. Are you saying I am something good? Tabitha asked, a small smile breaking through her tears. I am saying you might be the best thing that has come into my life in a long time. He paused. But only if you feel the same. I'm not trying to pressure you or rush you. I just wanted you to know where I stand. Tabitha looked at this man who had somehow seen past all her defenses, who looked at her and saw beauty where she had only seen flaws. The sincerity in his eyes was undeniable, and she realized that she believed him. More than that, she felt the same pull, the same sense of rightness she saw reflected in his face. I feel the same, she said softly. It scares me because I thought I had feelings for someone before and I was wrong, but this is different. You are different. We will take it slow, Wade promised. Get to know each other properly, but I wanted you to understand that my intentions are serious. I am not playing games. Neither am I, Tabitha said, and she realized it was true. She was tired of protecting herself, of hiding behind walls. Wade Lawson was offering her something precious, and she would be a fool to turn away from it out of fear. They sat together on that rock as the sun moved across the sky, talking about everything and nothing. Wade told her about the ranch, about his dreams of expanding the herd and maybe one day running cattle all the way to the railroad in Panguitch. Tabitha told him about growing up on a farm, about her love of reading and her secret dream of maybe opening a lending library in Tropic someday. "Why secret?" Wade asked. "That sounds like a fine idea." "Because it seems frivolous. Books are not practical, not out here where everyone is worried about survival. People need more than just survival," Wade said thoughtfully. "They need beauty and stories and things that feed the soul. Otherwise, what is the point of surviving?" It was perhaps the most profound thing anyone had ever said to her, and Tabitha felt something shift in her chest, a door opening that she had thought locked forever. The ride back to town as the sun was setting felt different than the ride out. They rode closer together, their legs occasionally brushing, and Wade kept looking over at her with a smile that made her heart flutter. When they reached the mercantile, Wade dismounted and helped her down, his hands lingering on her waist. "Can I see you again? Maybe next Sunday." "I would like that very much." "Good." He smiled, then surprised her by leaning in and pressing a gentle kiss to her cheek. "Until then, Miss Kendrick." "Tabitha," she corrected softly. "Please call me Tabitha." "Tabitha," he repeated like he was tasting her name. "Until then, Tabitha." She watched him ride away, her hand pressed to her cheek where his lips had touched, and felt something she had not felt in a long time. Hope. Samuel was waiting inside with a knowing smile. "Good ride." "Very good," Tabitha admitted, unable to keep the happiness from her voice. "I thought so." "You are glowing." Over the next few weeks, Wade became a regular fixture in Tabitha's life. He came to town twice a week, always making time to talk with her, to share a meal at the boarding house, or just to walk along the creek that ran through town. They talked about everything, discovering shared values and complementary dreams. Grace visited often too, and Tabitha found herself growing fond of the younger woman. Grace had a sharp wit and a generous heart, and she made no secret of her approval of Tabitha. "Wade has not been this happy in years," Grace confided one day while they were sorting through bolts of fabric. "He has always been so serious, so focused on keeping the ranch going. But lately, he laughs more. He seems lighter." "He makes me happy too," Tabitha admitted. "I did not think I could feel this way again." "Why not?" Grace asked curiously. Tabitha hesitated, then decided Grace deserved honesty. "I had my heart broken before I came here. A man I thought cared for me chose someone else, someone more beautiful." Grace's expression turned fierce. "Then he was an idiot. You are beautiful, Tabitha, maybe not in the conventional way, but there is something about you that is striking. Wade sees it. Everyone sees it except apparently you." "Your brother said something similar," Tabitha said softly. "Of course he did." "Wade has always had good taste," Grace grinned. "And he is serious about you. I can tell. He has been fixing up the ranch house, making improvements. He has not done that since our parents died." The knowledge sent a warm thrill through Tabitha. Wade was planning for a future that might include her. One evening in early June, Wade asked if he could take her to a dance being held at the community hall. It was the first major social event Tabitha had attended since arriving in Tropic, and she was nervous. She had one good dress, a green cotton with lace at the collar, and she spent an hour on her hair, trying to tame it into something presentable. When Wade arrived to collect her, the look on his face made all her efforts worthwhile. "You look beautiful," he said simply, offering his arm. The community hall was packed with people, and Tabitha recognized many of them from the store. There was music provided by a fiddle player and a man with a banjo, and the atmosphere was festive and welcoming. Wade was immediately hailed by friends and neighbors, and he introduced Tabitha with unmistakable pride. "This is Tabitha Kendrick, Samuel's niece," he would say, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. "She has been helping run the mercantile." They danced together, and though Tabitha was rusty, Wade was patient and steady, guiding her through the steps. Being in his arms, moving to the music, felt right in a way that made her chest ache with longing. During a break in the dancing, they stepped outside for some air. The night was warm and clear, the stars brilliant overhead. Wade led her a little way from the hall where they could talk without shouting over the music. "Are you having a good time?" he asked. "The best," Tabitha said honestly. "Everyone has been so welcoming. I feel like I am finally finding my place here. I am glad." Wade took both her hands in his. "Tabitha, we have been courting for almost 2 months now. I know that is not very long by some standards, but out here, we tend to know our minds quicker. Life does not give us the luxury of long courtships." Tabitha's heart began to pound. "Wade, let me finish," he said gently. "I have been alone for 5 years, focused on the ranch and on taking care of Grace. I thought that was enough, that I did not need anything else. But then you came to town, and suddenly I could see a different future, a fuller one, a happier one." He dropped to one knee, still holding her hands, and Tabitha gasped, "Wade, what are you doing?" "What I should have done weeks ago." His eyes shone in the starlight. "Tabitha Kendrick, I love you. I love your strength and your kindness and your sharp mind. I love the way you laugh and the way you see the world. I love everything about you. Will you marry me? Will you come to the Running L and build a life with me?" Tears streamed down Tabitha's face, but for once they were tears of joy, not sorrow. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Wade, I will marry you." He surged to his feet and pulled her into his arms, kissing her with a passion that made her dizzy. She kissed him back with everything in her, all the love and hope and gratitude she felt pouring into that moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Wade pressed his forehead to hers. "You have made me the happiest man in Utah territory. And you have made me believe in love again," Tabitha said. "You have made me believe in myself." "You are beautiful enough for me," Wade said fiercely. "More than beautiful enough. You are everything I have ever wanted." They went back inside to share their news, and the whole hall erupted in cheers and congratulations. Grace threw her arms around Tabitha, crying happy tears. "I am getting a sister," she exclaimed. "This is the best news ever." Samuel beamed with pride, shaking Wade's hand vigorously. "You take care of my girl," he said. "She is special." "I know," Wade said, pulling Tabitha close. "I will spend the rest of my life proving it to her." The next weeks were a whirlwind of preparation. They decided to marry in August, giving them time to get the ranch house ready and for Tabitha to transition her duties at the store. Samuel hired a young man from town to help him, insisting that Tabitha focus on her upcoming marriage. Tabitha worked with Grace to prepare the ranch house, and the two women grew even closer as they sewed curtains, cleaned rooms, and planned how to arrange the furniture. The house was bigger than Tabitha had expected, a solid 2-story structure that Wade's father had built with his own hands. It needed some work, but the bones were good, and with love and effort, it would be a beautiful home. Wade was attentive and affectionate, stealing kisses when they were alone, holding her hand as they walked, looking at her with such open adoration that it made her blush. He took her riding often, showing her the boundaries of the ranch, introducing her to the men who worked for him, and sharing his dreams for the future. "I want to build something lasting," he told her one evening as they sat on the porch of the ranch house, watching the sun set over the red cliffs. "Something we can pass down to our children someday." "Children," Tabitha repeated softly. "You want children, of course." Wade looked at her in surprise. "Do not you, I do," Tabitha said, feeling a warmth spread through her. "I just was not sure you did. We have never talked about it." "I want everything with you," Wade said seriously. "A full life, a big family if we are blessed, growing old together, watching the sun rise from this porch when we are gray and creaky. All of it." Tabitha leaned her head on his shoulder, feeling utterly content. "That sounds perfect." The wedding took place on a Sunday in mid-August at the small church in Tropic. Tabitha wore a simple white dress that she and Grace had sewn together, with wildflowers in her copper hair. Wade wore a new dark suit, looking handsome and a little nervous as he waited at the altar. As Tabitha walked down the aisle on Uncle Samuel's arm, she saw Wade's face transform with joy and love, and she knew with absolute certainty that she was making the right choice. This man, who had seen her when others looked past her, who had declared her beautiful when she could not see it herself, was her future and her home. The minister spoke of love and commitment, of building a life together through good times and bad. When it came time for vows, Wade's voice was strong and sure. "I promise to love you, honor you, and protect you all the days of my life," he said, his eyes never leaving hers. "To be your partner in all things, to support your dreams as you support mine. You are my heart, Tabitha, and I will spend my life proving myself worthy of yours." Tabitha's own vows were tearful but heartfelt. "I promise to stand beside you, to build our home together, to face whatever comes with courage and faith. You showed me that I was worth loving, Wade. You gave me back my belief in myself. I will love you until my last breath." When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, Wade kissed her with such tender passion that the whole congregation burst into applause and cheers. The celebration afterward was held at the community hall, with food brought by every family in town. There was dancing and laughter, toasts and well wishes. Grace cried happy tears, and Samuel gave a speech about how proud he was of his niece and how lucky Wade was to have her. As the evening wound down, Wade and Tabitha slipped away, riding together back to the Running L under a canopy of stars. Tabitha rode in front of Wade on his horse, held securely in his arms, feeling like the luckiest woman in the world. The ranch house glowed with lamplight as they approached, welcoming them home. Wade had asked Grace to stay in town with the Pattersons for a few days, giving them privacy, and the house was theirs alone. Wade carried Tabitha over the threshold, both of them laughing, and set her down gently in the parlor. "Welcome home, Mrs. Lawson," he said softly. "It sounds strange," Tabitha admitted, "but good, very good." They spent their wedding night discovering each other with tenderness and passion, and Tabitha learned that beauty was not about perfect features or fashionable figures. It was about being cherished, being seen, being loved for exactly who you were. The days that followed settled into a new rhythm. Tabitha learned the routines of the ranch, discovering that ranch work suited her. She tended the vegetable garden, helped with the chickens and the milk cows, and kept the house clean and welcoming. Grace returned after a few days, and the three of them found an easy harmony, working together to keep the ranch running smoothly. Wade was an attentive husband, making time every day to talk with Tabitha, to share his thoughts and listen to hers. He consulted her on decisions about the ranch, valuing her opinions and insights. At night, they sat on the porch and talked about their day, about the future, about everything and nothing. The problem with the Doherty brothers came to a head in September. Tabitha was in town with Grace, buying supplies, when Wade rode in with several of his ranch hands, looking grim. "What happened?" Tabitha asked immediately, seeing the anger in his eyes. "The Dohertys stampeded my herd last night. We lost 4 cattle in the ravine and another 6 are injured. They are trying to ruin me," Can the sheriff do anything? Not without proof. Wade's jaw was tight. But I know it was them. Their foreman was seen near my property at dusk. Then we go to the sheriff with that information, Tabitha said firmly. You are not going to let them intimidate you, Wade. The Running L is your home, our home. We fight for it. Wade looked at her, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. You are right. We fight. They spent the next week gathering evidence, talking to neighbors, documenting every suspicious incident. The sheriff, a grizzled veteran named Tom Crawford, finally had enough to confront the Doherty brothers. With the threat of serious charges, the brothers backed down, agreeing to pay damages and leave the Running L alone. You stood up to them, Sheriff Crawford told Wade. That matters out here. They will think twice before they mess with you again. That night, Wade held Tabitha close on their bed. I could not have done this without you, he said. You give me strength. We give each other strength, Tabitha corrected. That is what marriage is not it, being stronger together than we are apart. Yes, Wade agreed, kissing her softly. Exactly that. As autumn painted the landscape in golds and reds, Tabitha began to suspect she might be pregnant. She waited until she was certain, then told Wade one evening as they sat on the porch watching the sunset. I have something to tell you, she said, unable to keep the smile from her face. Wade looked at her, hope dawning in his eyes. Are you? Yes. Tabitha laughed at his expression. We are going to have a baby, Wade, next spring. He let out a whoop of joy and pulled her into his arms, spinning her around until she was dizzy and laughing. A baby. We are going to have a baby. Grace came running from the house at the commotion. What is happening? Is everything all right? Everything is perfect, Wade said, his face shining with happiness. Tabitha is expecting. You are going to be an aunt, Grace. Grace screamed with delight and hugged them both. This is the best news. Oh, we have so much to prepare. We need to set up the nursery and make baby clothes and... The three of them spent the evening making plans, their voices filled with excitement and joy. Later, alone in their room, Wade held Tabitha gently, his hand resting on her still flat stomach. Thank you, he whispered. For this, for everything. For being my wife, for giving me a family again. Thank you for seeing me, Tabitha whispered back. For loving me when I could not love myself. You are beautiful enough for me, Wade said, echoing his words from months ago. You are everything to me, Tabitha. Everything. The winter was mild, and Tabitha's pregnancy progressed smoothly. She continued working around the ranch as long as she was able, though Wade fussed over her constantly, worried she was doing too much. Grace was an enthusiastic helper, already knitting tiny blankets and sewing baby gowns. In early April of 1883, on a warm spring night filled with the scent of blooming sage, Tabitha gave birth to a healthy baby boy. The labor was long and difficult, but Grace and the midwife from town saw her through, and Wade never left her side, holding her hand and whispering encouragement. When the baby finally arrived, red-faced and squalling, Wade took him with trembling hands and stared down at his son with an expression of absolute wonder. He is perfect, Wade breathed. Tabitha, he is perfect. What should we name him? Tabitha asked, exhausted but happy. Wade looked at her, tears shining in his eyes. What about Samuel? After your uncle, Tabitha felt her own tears start. Samuel Wade Lawson, it is perfect. Little Samuel was a good baby, healthy and curious. He had his father's blue-green eyes and his mother's copper hair, and he was adored by everyone who met him. Uncle Samuel made the trip from town frequently to visit his namesake, and Grace was a devoted aunt, always eager to hold the baby or sing to him. Watching Wade with their son filled Tabitha with a joy so profound, it sometimes brought her to tears. He was a gentle, patient father, talking to Samuel even though the baby could not yet understand, holding him for hours, never complaining about sleepless nights. "This is everything I wanted," Wade told Tabitha one evening as they sat on the porch, watching the sunset while Samuel slept in her arms. "A family, a home, someone to love who loves me back. You gave me all of that." "We gave it to each other," Tabitha said, leaning against his shoulder. "I never thought I would be this happy, Wade. Back in Salt Lake City, I thought my life was over. I thought being rejected meant I was unworthy of love. But you showed me the truth. You showed me that the right person sees your worth, that real love does not depend on being conventionally beautiful." "You are beautiful," Wade insisted, as he always did. "The most beautiful woman I have ever known, and not just on the outside, though you are certainly lovely, but inside where it matters. Your courage, your kindness, your strength, that is what real beauty is." As the years passed, the running prospered. Wade's hard work and Tabitha's good management brought increasing success. They bought more land, expanded the herd, and became one of the most respected ranching families in the region. Their family grew too. 2 years after Samuel, they had a daughter they named Rose, a pretty child with dark hair and her mother's brown eyes. Then came Thomas, another boy, sturdy and quiet. And finally, when Tabitha was 33, their youngest, a daughter named Lily who had her father's eyes and a fierce, independent streak from birth. Grace married a neighboring rancher when she was 22, a good man named Daniel Prescott who treated her with respect and affection. They built a house on land adjacent to the running keeping the two families close. Grace and Daniel had 4 children of their own, and the cousins grew up together, running wild across the rangeland. Uncle Samuel eventually sold the mercantile and retired, moving into a small house Wade built for him on the ranch property. He spent his days whittling, telling stories to the grandchildren, and declaring that he had never been happier. One evening in the summer of 1895, when Tabitha was 37 and they had been married for 13 years, she and Wade sat on their porch watching their children play in the yard. Samuel, now 12, was teaching 8-year-old Thomas how to rope a fence post. Rose, 10, was picking wildflowers with 6-year-old Lily, both girls laughing at something only they understood. "You ever think about the past?" Wade asked quietly. "About how we met, how different things might have been?" "Sometimes," Tabitha admitted. "I think about how I almost did not come to Tropic. I almost stayed in Salt Lake City, hiding in my aunt's shop, nursing my broken heart. If I had, I would have missed all of this. I would have missed you." "I think about that too," Wade said. "About how close I came to missing you. If Samuel had not needed help, if you had not taken that stagecoach, if I had not needed fence posts that particular day. So many little things that had to line up perfectly." "Fate," Tabitha suggested. "Maybe. Or maybe just luck. But either way, I am grateful." He took her hand, his thumb rubbing across her knuckles in a familiar, comforting gesture. "You changed my life, Tabitha. You made me understand what it means to truly love someone, to build a life together." "You changed mine too," Tabitha said softly. "You made me see myself differently. Before you, I thought I was not enough. Not pretty enough, not special enough, not worthy of real love. But you looked at me and saw something different. You saw me. Because you are worth seeing," Wade said firmly. "And you are beautiful enough for me. More than enough. You always have been." Tabitha leaned over and kissed him, a sweet kiss filled with years of love and partnership. "I love you, Wade Lawson, more than I can ever say. And I love you, Tabitha Lawson, more than words can express." They sat in comfortable silence, watching their children and feeling the deep satisfaction of a life well lived. The red cliffs glowed in the setting sun, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Somewhere in the distance, A coyote called, and the evening breeze carried the scent of sage and earth. This was their land, their home, their life. They had built it together from nothing but love and determination and faith in each other. They had faced hardships and triumphs, sorrow and joy, and through it all, their love had only grown stronger. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, their children came running up to the porch, full of stories about their day. Wade scooped up Lily while Tabitha pulled Rose onto her lap. Samuel and Thomas settled on the porch steps, and Uncle Samuel emerged from his house to join them, settling into his favorite rocking chair. This was family. This was home. This was the life Tabitha had never dared to dream of, and it was more beautiful than anything she could have imagined. Years continued to pass, marked by the changing seasons and the steady rhythm of ranch life. The children grew into young adults. Samuel, serious and responsible like his father, took on more duties at the ranch, proving himself capable and trustworthy. Rose, gentle and artistic, surprised everyone by declaring her intention to become a teacher like Miss Hartwell. Thomas discovered a talent for working with horses, training them with patience and skill. And Lily, fierce and independent, announced at 16 that she wanted to help run the ranch, not just marry and leave it. "I am not going anywhere," she told her parents stubbornly. "This is my home too. Why should only Samuel get to stay?" Wade and Tabitha looked at each other and smiled. Their daughter had inherited her mother's strength and determination. "You can stay as long as you want," Wade told her. "This ranch belongs to all of you, not just the boys." Through the years, Wade and Tabitha remained devoted to each other. Their hair began to gray, lines appeared around their eyes, but their love never dimmed. They still sat on the porch every evening when weather permitted, still held hands, still looked at each other with the same affection they had felt as newlyweds. "My beautiful wife," Wade would say, and Tabitha would smile, no longer doubting or deflecting the compliment. She had learned to see herself through his eyes and in doing so had found her own worth. In the autumn of 1905, when Tabitha was 47 and Wade was 50, they celebrated their 22nd wedding anniversary with a party at the ranch. Their children and grandchildren, Grace and her family, Uncle Samuel now elderly but still sharp-minded, and friends from town all gathered to celebrate. As Tabitha looked around at the people filling her home, at the life she and Wade had built together, she felt overwhelmed with gratitude. She caught Wade's eye across the room, and he came to her immediately, as if drawn by an invisible thread. "Happy anniversary, my love," he said, pulling her close. "Happy anniversary," she replied. "Thank you for all of this, for seeing me, for loving me, for building this beautiful life with me." "Thank you for saying yes," Wade said, "for taking a chance on a rough rancher who did not have pretty words or fancy manners, for being brave enough to believe me when I told you that you were beautiful." "You were right," Tabitha said. "I am beautiful. Not because of how I look, but because of how I love, how I live, how I have built something meaningful. You taught me that." "We taught each other," Wade corrected, just as she had corrected him so many years ago. "We made each other better, stronger, happier. That is what love does." They danced that night under strings of lanterns hung from the porch rafters, surrounded by family and friends, their movements still graceful together after so many years. The music was provided by some of their ranch hands who played fiddle and guitar, and the sound carried across the rangeland into the night. Uncle Samuel passed away peacefully in his sleep the following winter at the age of 78. They buried him on a hill overlooking the ranch, and the whole town turned out for the funeral. He had been loved and respected, and his legacy lived on in the mercantile that still bore his name, and in the niece he had taken in when she needed a home. "He gave me a second chance," Tabitha said as she stood by his grave. "If he had not invited me to Tropic, I never would have met you. I never would have found my home." "He knew what you needed," Wade said, his arm around her shoulders. "He brought you here so you could find yourself and find us." The years rolled on. Samuel married a local girl named Catherine and took over the day-to-day running of the ranch, though Wade remained active and involved. Rose became the schoolteacher in Tropic, following in Miss Hartwell's footsteps. Thomas started a successful horse breeding operation on land Wade deeded to him. And Lily, true to her word, remained at the ranch, becoming Samuel's partner in management and earning the respect of every ranch hand and neighboring rancher. Wade and Tabitha watched their children build their own lives, have their own families, and they took pride and joy in every accomplishment, every milestone. They became grandparents many times over, and their house was always full of noise and laughter when the grandchildren visited. As they aged, they slowed down, taking on fewer physical tasks but remaining involved in every aspect of the ranch. They spent more time on the porch, telling stories to the grandchildren, sharing the history of the running L and the family that had built it. One evening in the summer of 1917, when Tabitha was 59 and Wade was 62, they sat on that familiar porch watching the sunset paint the red cliffs in brilliant colors. Their hair was now more gray than brown or copper, their faces lined with decades of laughter and occasional worry, but their hands were still intertwined, fingers locked together as they had been for 35 years. "We have had a good life, have not we?" Wade said quietly. "The best life," Tabitha agreed. "Better than I ever dreamed possible." "You remember that day I took you up to the Overlook?" Wade asked. "When I asked you what that man in Salt Lake City saw when he looked at you?" "I remember," Tabitha said. "I told you I was not beautiful enough. And I told you that you were beautiful enough for me. More than enough." Wade turned to look at her fully. "I want you to know, Tabitha, that has never changed. You are still the most beautiful woman in the world to me. More so now than ever because every line on your face, every gray hair tells a story of our life together. That is real beauty. That is the kind that lasts." Tabitha felt tears prick at her eyes. After all these years, he could still move her with his words. "I love you, Wade Lawson. With everything I am, I love you. And I love you, Tabitha Lawson. Today, tomorrow, and forever." They sat together as the sun sank below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of purple and gold. The ranch was quiet around them, settling into evening. Somewhere, cattle lowed softly. The wind whispered through the cottonwoods. A horse nickered in the corral. These were the sounds of home, of a life built with love and determination. Tabitha thought back to that frightened, heartbroken woman who had stepped off the stagecoach 35 years ago, convinced she was not worthy of love or happiness. That woman had been so wrong. She had been beautiful all along. She had just needed someone to help her see it, someone who looked at her and saw not flaws, but the strength and courage and kindness that made her who she was. Wade had been that person, and in loving him, she had learned to love herself. "What are you thinking about?" Wade asked, noticing her contemplative expression. "About how far we have come," Tabitha said. "About how that broken-hearted girl from Salt Lake City found everything she needed right here in this dusty little town. About how the right person can change your whole life." "You changed mine too," Wade reminded her. "I was surviving before you came, but I was not really living. You taught me how to do that again." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, their children and grandchildren began arriving for Sunday supper, a tradition they maintained whenever possible. The house filled with voices and laughter. 3 generations gathering around the long table Wade had built with his own hands when Samuel was a baby. They held hands around the table while Wade said grace, thanking God for family, for health, for the land that sustained them, and for the love that bound them all together. When he finished, everyone chorused Amen, and the meal began, full of conversation and good-natured teasing and the comfortable chaos of family. Tabitha looked around the table at the faces she loved most in the world. Her husband, still handsome to her despite the years, his eyes as bright and loving as ever. Her children, grown and capable, each having found their own path in life. Her grandchildren, ranging from toddlers to teenagers, all healthy and happy. This was her legacy, this family built on a foundation of love and acceptance. Later, after everyone had gone home and the house was quiet again, Tabitha and Wade prepared for bed. It was a familiar routine, comfortable and intimate after so many years together. As they lay in the darkness, Tabitha curled against Wade's side, his arm around her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for believing in me, for loving me, for building this life with me." "Thank you for being brave enough to say yes," Wade replied. "For trusting me, for loving me back, for being my partner in all things." "Beautiful enough for you," Tabitha said softly, repeating the words that had changed her life. "More than enough," Wade confirmed. "Always more than enough." They drifted off to sleep together, as they had done for thousands of nights, secure in their love and in the life they had built. Outside, the stars wheeled slowly across the Utah sky, and the red cliffs stood eternal watch over the land they called home. The seasons continued their eternal cycle. Spring brought new calves and the fresh green of growing things. Summer blazed hot and bright, the work hard but satisfying. Autumn painted the cottonwoods gold and brought cooler temperatures. Winter wrapped the ranch in quiet cold, a time for rest and reflection. Through it all, Wade and Tabitha remained constants in each other's lives. They celebrated 50 years of marriage in 1933, surrounded by children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. The party was held at the ranch, now run primarily by their grandson James, Samuel's oldest son, but still bearing the Lawson name and the values Wade and Tabitha had instilled. Tabitha was 75 then, Wade 78. They moved slower, needed help with more things, but their minds remained sharp and their love undiminished. They spent their days in comfortable companionship, often just sitting together without the need for words, communicating in the silent language of long marriage. 50 years, Wade marveled on their anniversary. "It seems like yesterday and forever all at once." "Every day with you has been a gift," Tabitha said. "Even the hard days, the times we struggled, we faced them together and that made all the difference." "You made all the difference," Wade said. "You took a lonely rancher and gave him a reason to live, not just survive. You gave me love and family and joy. I could never thank you enough for that." "You gave me those things too," Tabitha reminded him. "And you gave me something else, something equally precious. You gave me myself. You helped me see that I was worthy, that I was enough. That gift changed everything." As they moved into their 80s, time began to slow for both of them. They spent most of their days on the porch or in the parlor, receiving visitors, telling stories, enjoying the sunshine and the views they had loved for decades. Their children and grandchildren made sure they wanted for nothing, and the house was never quiet for long. Wade's health began to fail in the spring of 1940. It was nothing dramatic, just a gradual winding down, his strong body finally wearing out after 85 years of hard work and good living. The doctor said it was simply age, and there was nothing to be done but make him comfortable. Tabitha refused to leave his side. She slept in the chair next to their bed, holding his hand through the long nights. During the day, she read to him, talked to him, reminded him of their life together. "You remember our first ride to the Overlook?" she asked one afternoon. "When you told me I was beautiful," Wade smiled, his eyes distant with memory. "Best day of my life until then. I knew that day that I wanted to marry you. I just had to work up the courage to ask." "I am so glad you did," Tabitha said, tears streaming down her weathered cheeks. "You gave me the best life, Wade, the very best life." "We gave it to each other," he corrected weakly. "We were a team, you and me, always a team." He passed away peacefully one evening in June, surrounded by family, Tabitha holding his hand and whispering words of love until his last breath. The grief was overwhelming, a physical pain that took her breath away. For 63 years, he had been her partner, her love, her home. Half of herself was gone, and she did not know how to exist without him. They buried him on the hill next to Uncle Samuel, overlooking the ranch he had built and loved. The entire town turned out for the funeral, and people came from as far away as Salt Lake City to pay their respects. Wade had been respected and admired, a pillar of the community, and his loss was felt by many. But none felt it as deeply as Tabitha. She was 82 years old, and for the first time in over 6 decades, she was alone. Her children tried to comfort her, her grandchildren surrounded her with love, but there was an emptiness inside that nothing could fill. She spent her days on the porch, looking out over the land Wade had loved, talking to him as if he could still hear her. "I miss you," she would say to the wind. "Every moment I miss you, but I am grateful. Grateful for every day we had, every moment we shared. You made me beautiful, Wade. Not with your words, though those helped, but with your love. You loved me so completely that I learned to love myself. That was your greatest gift to me." As summer turned to autumn, Tabitha grew weaker. She was not sick exactly, just tired. Tired of being without her partner, tired of half a life. Her children recognized what was happening, and they made sure she was comfortable, surrounded by love. On a clear October evening, as the sun painted the red cliffs in brilliant colors one last time, Tabitha sat on the porch wrapped in a blanket, her daughter Rose and son Samuel on either side of her. The whole family had gathered, sensing that the end was near. "Tell us the story, Mama," Rose said softly, "about how you and Papa met." Tabitha smiled, her eyes distant with memory. "I came to Tropic thinking my life was over. I thought I was not good enough, not pretty enough, not worthy of love. I was so wrong. Your father saw something in me that I could not see in myself. He looked at me and saw beauty, strength, worth. And he loved me so completely that I learned to believe him. That is the greatest love story there is, not grand gestures or dramatic declarations, but the quiet daily choosing to see the best in each other, to build something together, to be a team through good times and bad." She paused, breathing slowly. "I was lucky. Lucky to have found him, lucky to have had 63 years together, lucky to have all of you. The running L was just land until we filled it with love. That is what made it home." As the sun set and the stars began to appear, Tabitha closed her eyes, a smile on her weathered face. "Wade," she whispered, "I am coming. Wait for me." She passed peacefully, surrounded by the family she and Wade had created, leaving behind a legacy of love and strength that would endure for generations. They buried her next to Wade on the hill, and the family placed a single headstone for them both that read, "Wade and Tabitha Lawson, together in life, together in eternity." They built something beautiful. The running L continued to thrive under the management of their descendants, who honored the legacy of the couple who had founded it. The story of how Wade and Tabitha met, how he had seen her beauty when she could not, became family legend, passed down to each new generation as an example of what real love looked like. Years later, When their great-great-grandchildren would stand on that hill and look out over the ranch, they would hear the story of the woman who thought she was not beautiful enough and the cowboy who told her, "You're beautiful enough for me." And they would understand that beauty was not about perfect features or fashionable figures, but about being seen, being valued, being loved for exactly who you are. That was the legacy Wade and Tabitha left behind. Not just land or prosperity, but an understanding of what truly mattered. Love that saw beyond the surface, strength that came from partnership, and beauty that was measured not in appearance but in character, courage, and the capacity to love and be loved in return. The red cliff still stood watch over the valley, eternal and unchanging. The running L still prospered, generation after generation continuing the work Wade and Tabitha had begun. And somewhere in the whisper of the wind through the cottonwoods, in the cry of the hawk soaring overhead, in the quiet moments when the light painted the landscape in gold and crimson, the love story of Wade and Tabitha Lawson lived on, a testament to the truth that real beauty, real love, was not about being perfect. It was about being perfectly, completely seen and cherished for exactly who you are.